So I recently made a sponsored video for Amaran, the lights brand, and I was really happy with how the video came out. And so I wanted to use this video to retrospectively break down how I edited the video and just talk about how I edit in general, going through sort of my scripting process, my voiceover on the timeline, how I decide which shots to use, the pacing, music, and kind of, yeah, lots of other little just tips and tricks that hopefully you'll find useful. So I'm just going to play the video now so you can decide whether it's something you want to see how I actually edited. This is how I turn my setup from this to this with 4 different lights, including one that you would have never seen before. So for my key light to the left of me, I'm using the brand new Amaran Verge Max. This is like a softbox, but is as flat as a pancake. It comes with a sturdy desk stand. You just slot it on and connect it via USB-C. There's a dial on the front to adjust the brightness, as well as one to adjust the temperature of the light. And then for my rim light to separate me from the background, I have it placed up here. And I'm using the Amaran Pano 60C, which are full RGB and come with a little softbox as well. And then for the background lights, I'm using an Amaran T4C tube light, which is also RGB, as well as another one over here in the corner. And then one of the best things is these can all be controlled wirelessly through the Amaran app. And then once I'm done, I can just turn them all off. So I just want to add that the video does feel a little bit addy. You know, I understand that. It's a product video. Product videos are a little bit difficult to kind of do when they're sponsored in a kind of non-addy way. I think some parts could have been improved, and we'll talk about that in the video. But you know, like I said, I was happy with how this turned out. I don't usually do product videos. I mainly focus on like software and screen recordings. And so yeah, I just wanted to break this down and just talk about some of the things that I decided to put into the video. Right, so first and foremost, we're actually going to start with my script. I don't do anything special with a template. I essentially come up with like a hook, visual hook, and then sort of the main body. I was just trying to focus this video mainly on the Amaran Verge Max, which was their new product, and they sent me a few other things, so I wanted to integrate them as well to give the brand more value. Usually when I'm making a video for a product, I go on the website, check the features, check kind of their own copy, and I decided that I kind of wanted to focus on the flatness of the light, the USB-C plug-in, the dials on the front, the stand, and then also how you can connect it to the app, as well as kind of link it with other lights. So once I'd done my script, for those of you who've seen me kind of talk about editing before, I usually just start with a voiceover like this. I turn my setup from this to this with completely flat. So this will just be essentially me reading out this script. And then what I do for videos that are like A-roll and B-roll, I actually go away and mock up the A-roll and B-roll. So you'll see here, there's some sort of rough shots. The reason why I do this is because I find that I plan shots to use for different sections. I go and shoot them, I set up the lighting, I set up the shot, I bring them all back in here, and I'm like, oh, it's not quite right. And then I have to set it all up again in different locations. I find it very time consuming. I prefer to, I guess, plan my shots out, go and just like hold my camera and just take the shots, because usually you have to put it on the tripod so that it's, you know, still, set up the lighting, don't want to set up the lighting. So I go and take the shots, put them on the timeline. I do like a rough sort of layering of the B-roll shots and go, yeah, that worked, that didn't work, need more of that, need to redo that. And then I then go back and I know exactly what shots I want to reshoot, whether actually maybe I wanted a shot a bit closer or a bit further away. And I find actually it's not that much more time consuming compared to having to go and redo shots kind of twice. And so that's what I did. And then I kind of then just layered them on my timeline over here. So firstly, starting with the intro, I felt like the hook was maybe a little bit long, like this bit here. This is how I turn my setup from this to this with 4 different lights included. Even though that's not that long, the thing is, I'd seen people do this text hook before. This is how I turn my setup from this to this. And so this is a proven hook. This video didn't perform as well as I'd liked. Sometimes things work with some people, sometimes they don't work for others. This is how I turn my setup from this to this. I think even though that's like 3-4 seconds, I think it's still too long. And then 4 different lights, including one that you would have never seen. This was the visual hook, like showing the big light. Maybe I could have put that right at the start and be like, this is a light that you've never seen before. So I think I maybe just could have put that at the start, and then maybe have gone, this is a light you've never seen before. And I used it to turn my setup from this to this. think maybe that would have been a better hook. But yeah, just retrospectively kind of also analyzing my own edit. But yeah, this sort of B-roll shot here is essentially to pique curiosity. I know this is a light that has just come out, so people wouldn't have seen it before. I think it's quite an interesting looking light. I think maybe I could have also showed the thinness of it in the beginning. That might be also would have been a better visual hook if I'd maybe leaned in and then maybe turned it around as well to show the thinness. But my plan was to show the thinness later on in the video, but perhaps I could have shown it a bit earlier before. So for my key light to the left of me, I'm using the brand new. So again, this is just going back to the A-roll. I actually had the app like next to me, like in my right hand, and I was like turning it on as I was like going key light, key light to the left of me. I was trying to just show what it looked like just with the key light on its own, with all my other lights turned off. The left of me, I'm using the brand new Amaran Verge Max. So again, this shot, first shot here is just giving some context to the light in its actual position. I think that's quite a nice shot. It's kind of in the middle, and then brand new Amaran Verge. And then this one is just a shot of the name of the product on the actual product. I try and do this when I do product videos, is to like use the logo or use the brand name on the product to basically show that when I say it, like I did here. I think that's really nice synergy with like the visual and when you say it. New Amaran Verge Max. This is like, and so this was the section where I was trying to compare the two. So let me just play this. This is like a softbox, but is as flat as a pancake. I think this is a nice visual representation. Obviously, I'm trying to show the softbox in one hand and the light in the other hand. You can see they're kind of the same size. This is like a softbox, but is as flat as a until there, where you can see. Maybe this could have been the visual hook at the start as well. Like, here's a softbox, and this is this new light. Look how thin it is. Again, I'll never know which one of these would have worked. You can always speculate as to, oh, that hook would have done better, or this hook would have done better. We'll never know until I maybe made a different video on a slightly different product, but kind of did some of the other hooks that I had suggested, you know what I mean? It comes with a sturdy desk stand. I like this shot here where I kind of zoomed in. I was trying to just create a bit of dynamicness rather than just a really static shot. I kind of wanted to show that it was on the desk, kind of sturdy. It comes with a sturdy, and then zoom back out. You just slot it on and connect it via USB-C. There's a dial on the front to adjust. And then if you notice here, all of these shots are inline, and I use guidelines here. So you'll see my guidelines, they're a bit all over the place. So I'm kind of wanting you to look just here. And then when I go to the next shot, you can see here, you're also looking here as well. And then when you go to the next shot, you're also looking here as well. And this is all very intentional because I don't want you to be looking in other places. I want it to be easy for you to be looking at the thing that I want you to look at in the next shot. And you do that by just putting it in the same position, essentially. And you can see here, look, same position, same position. This one is not in the same position because I actually wanted people to focus on the light. And what you'll find actually is when you do shots like this where you're trying to line them all up, I find that sometimes what seems the obvious thing to put in the center shot is not always the thing that should be there. And I'm trying to explain this. When you've watched a video so many times, you lose fresh perspective and you know where stuff is going to be in the next shot. Basically what I'm trying to say is when you don't have fresh eyes on stuff, you think that maybe you are to put like, when I'm deciding what to put in the middle, I might like decide to be like this section up here or this section down here. What I find is the best way to combat this is to take the video and put it on your phone. And I do this anyway at the end of every edit. I put the video on my phone and it allows me to get a fresh view and eyes and perspective that's my own on my own video. And I can actually see where my eyes are looking after every shot without kind of me knowing what's coming next, even though I do, because it's because it's on a new device. It's weird. Like when I put it on the device, there'll be a shot and I'll be like, oh, like I didn't look where I thought I was gonna look, and then I make the readjustment on my edit. So I'd highly recommend doing this for all of your videos if you're kind of wanting to make sure people are looking at the right thing when you cut, if your cutting is fairly fast. Via USB-C. There's a dial on the front to adjust it. And so here, the shots were me doing a close-up of the dial and then also further away. So these were just two shots. One shot of me obviously doing the dial, and then another shot, which is a separate shot. I'm not doing these both of these things at the same time, even though I'm trying to make it look like I am doing those things at the same time. And then did the same again here, but I wanted to just mix up the shot a little bit for this one and just kind of have it beaming down and essentially showcase the brightness change here, and then also show the temperature change here from white to orange. You can kind of see it on my face. And then for my rim light to set, and then now I'm moving towards the other lights. This section was fairly short and I just covered the features of the product fairly quickly. I didn't want to make the video too long, it's 45 seconds. And then for my rim light to separate, again here I'm turning the light on with my right hand here for my rim light to just create that. From the background, I have it placed up here, and I'm using the Amaran Pano 60C, which are full RGB and come with a little softbox as well. I like these shots where you do that sort of, and they're pretty simple to do. I was just trying to line it up with the thing is, these shots happen so fast, they don't have to be lined up that much. And what I find is the easiest way to do this. Slightly different than the grid line method, is what I will do is I will actually basically go over to the area where I want to cut it. I'll click on the top of the timeline and I'll just turn down the opacity, and I will just basically see where it looks like it's gonna cut, and basically just like, you can see it's not, and just make some adjustments here. And then once you're happy with it, you can just basically leave it. And then for the background lights, I'm using an Amaran. Again, use the app to turn on the phone here. And then for the background lights, I'm using an Amaran T4C tube light, which is also, I tried to add a little bit of humor in here with the lightsaber. I obviously put it in red, added some sound effects. Also kind of trying to show off that it's wireless as well, like no cable and RGB obviously, as well as another one over here in the corner. And then one of the best things is these can all be controlled wirelessly. I think this was quite a nice shot of like the light kind of blurred out in the background, essentially showing me change it in real time, the Amaran app. And then once I'm done, I can just turn them all off and then that was it. So I was actually really happy with just the layering. It just had a really nice pacing to it, because everything is kind of like 2 or 3 seconds, like not too quick, just nice flowing between A-roll and B-roll. And so then now moving on to the music. I like to pick the music usually once I've done the rough voiceover, and then find some different tracks and decide which one kind of fits the vibe for the voiceover and maybe some of the rough B-roll. And that helps me also cut to the beat and just speak in the right rhythm, because if you know the track that you're using, when you go to film the final A-roll, you can kind of get yourself into the same rhythm of the track, and it sounds nice. When it comes to putting the track in line with stuff, what I do is, and I will just show you how I do it in real time with just the whole length of the track. So this is the track altogether, and what I usually do is listen to the start. I like using the drop, of course, having the sort of visual hook with the just build up and then the drop. So what I'll do is I will put that over to the timeline down here. But the problem here is that this brand new Amaran Verge Max, the drop is there. So what I'll do is I'll just literally line it up until we got the drop there, and then, so for my never seen before. So for my key, and kind of have it, sometimes it drops right on there or sometimes it doesn't, never seen before. So for my, and I'll just see what it sounds like now from start. This is how I turn my setup from this to this with 4 different lights, including, see for this one, I didn't like the music track starting at the beginning, and sometimes I have it there, sometimes I don't. This is how I turn my, so I actually decided, because there was a little dingle from this to this, I actually prefer to have it just here, like this to this. So the track started as I went to this, and I just think that sounded a lot better. To this with 4 different lights, including one that you would have never seen before. So for my, and then usually I let the track play through and just let it play out, and then I wasn't happy with that ending. So when it comes to the ending, what I usually do is I go to the end of the track and go, okay, what does the end sound like? Okay, I don't like the end there, but I can see there's a bit here that's not too... Okay, so this is nice. I like that section. So what I ended up doing was just essentially sound lights. I'm using an Amaran T4C tube light, which is also RGB, as well as another one. So I wanted to find that like last part. So I know that like that's like a loop there basically. So if I've cut that here, and what I'm doing is I'm just actually finding the section that just lines up with that. An Amaran T4C tube light, which is also RGB, as well as another one over here in the corner. And then so I can hear, if you listen there, look. An Amaran T4C tube light, which is also RGB, as well as another one over here in the corner. So actually, like, this section here is the same as this section here, so I know usually what I do sometimes is I just actually just put them underneath. So now I'm just looking to just line these up. So I'm just looking at the waveforms here. There we go. That's that. And then what this will then do, if I play this, you'll listen. Look. Tube light, which is also RGB, as well as another one over here in the corner. Yeah, there we go. And then now what I can do is just trim that back. And then look, T4C tube light, which is also RGB, as well as another one over here in the corner. So now I've just cut it to that section, and then I can just let it go. I can just turn them all off. Sometimes what I also might do is just add a little keyframe in here, and add a little keyframe down here, and I will just like basically let this sort of drift out the Amaran app, and then once I'm done, I can just turn them all off like. And that's what I'll do. I also obviously added in some sound effects. These sound effects, these are actually ones that were me recording it. So what I use is either a shotgun microphone or like a Rode like one or DJI one, and you just hold it close to it. So basically you just do the movement, hold it close, and then usually you can just turn the sound effect up. Same with this one. And then for these dial ones, I actually went ahead and just found this like ticker sound. I then just slowed it down. I slowed it down and basically on the front to adjust, had it louder for when I was closer, and then when I was further away, I just turned down the volume. And then for this other one, as well as one to adjust it. If you listen, on the front, let me mute my voice so you can just hear. So basically all I did was just reverse it. So sometimes I just go on speed duration and just reverse. The second one, like when it sounds a bit weird when I just play it on its own, but actually when you're playing it all together, you can't really notice. Front to adjust the brightness, as well as one to adjust the temperature. I try and just, or sometimes I use a low pass on the same sound effect to get this sort of like the first one is higher pitch and then the second one is lower pitch. If I'm using the same sound effect. And then once I've done that, the last thing I do is captions. I personally don't spend a huge amount of time on my captions. Some people have more dynamic captions. I simply just can't be asked. I think captions are sometimes important. It depends on your style. If your style evolves around captions, then captions are important. If your style doesn't evolve around captions, then they're not important. But the alignment is kind of important. I really just like to have them all in the same place for the whole time. Sometimes that's not possible. So what I try and do is prioritize them going in a spot where they just look the best in most spots. And so I'll look at like where my guidelines are, and I usually just put it below the guidelines. But sometimes you find that they then like basically they go over important stuff. So I just basically go through the whole video and just hopefully find a spot where they don't like overlap something important across the whole video. And it does mean that I have to sort of accept that like here they wouldn't usually be there, they would usually be above me. But I don't think that's a huge problem if somebody is just like watching the video and the captions are staying in the same place, because if they're bouncing from everywhere and there's lots of shots, and because there's lots of shots, you require the captions to be in different positions, because I guess for each shot, the perfect caption spot would be different. I find it's just too bouncy. So personally, just go for an approach where they just look good across all of the shots. And then actually one last tip for the music. I would say that when you find good music and you like it, just save it and like start to build a library of like 10, 15, 20 tracks and just reuse them. It's so much easier and time saving to just reuse tracks that you've just used before. Like nobody's gonna notice if you use a track that you used 6 or 7 videos ago. So again, just save them. I use Epidemic Sound. I sometimes use Artless. There are links in the description for those. Both very affordable, both like a necessity in my opinion when it comes to getting good music, because most of the free libraries are awful, or you'll just run out of good stuff on there. So just yeah, you don't have to get an account with one of those, but they're the ones that I have used for a while and recommend. But yeah, other than that, hopefully that kind of broke down some of my processes, gave you some few tips and tricks of how I break down my edit. I'm probably going to do one of these on my screen recording style as well to show you how I do that. But hopefully this was valuable, and if it was useful, just drop a comment saying what you found valuable and useful, and if you'd like to see me do anything more in this style and what you'd like to see me go through. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video and enjoy the rest of your week.